All right, so here we go. Trophic levels. You've seen this word before. Think about what is an organism called that makes its own energy? Remember? Autotroph. What's an organism that steals energy from others? Heterotroph. So that word troph has to do with how it gets its energy. So a group of organisms exist in the same link of the food chain. So, for example, this would be a trophic level, the producers. This would be a trophic level. This would be called the primary consumers because these are producers. Everybody else, all the other things in this picture are going to be consumers. You have decomposers coming down the side sometimes or down here at the bottom. But all these are consumers, and so we say these are the first level consumers, second level consumers, third level consumers. Another way to say first, second, and third is primary, secondary, and tertiary. It looks like tertiary, but it's tertiary. So these would be the primary consumers because they're the first consumers on the food chain. This is an energy pyramid, but if it were a food chain, it would be primary, secondary. What would these ones be called? Tertiary. Um, those are the different trophic levels. And then interdependence. Interdependence. You know what dependence means. Some of you do. So dependence means that you rely on something. You have to have that organism. So chances are you're dependent on your parents, or you're dependent on, if you have a job, you're dependent on that money as an income, or you're dependent on whatever. Interdependence means that they're two or more things are dependent on each other. Two or more things are dependent on each other. Keep reading. It says every living thing in an ecosystem depends on other organisms to live. Some abiotic factors actually depend on biotic factors. So in the ecosystem, we talk about ecology. Ecology is how things are relationships with each other, where they depend on each other. So populations of one species depend on several populations of other species, and it doesn't even have to be for things that you eat. We rely on things to help us breathe. Think about algae in the ocean or trees in the forest. They produce oxygen for us to breathe. Decomposers out in the woods help break things down so disease doesn't spread super easily. If when things die, they just sat there for months and months and months, then diseases can start spreading, stuff like that. So that's interdependence. Biodiversity. If you look at this word diversity, if I said I had a diverse group of friends, you might assume that I have males and females, that I have different races, that I have different maybe religions, I have different political, like my friends have different political groups that they're part of, maybe from different countries. That is diverse. So biodiverse means diversity of life. Bio means life. So having a wide range of living things in an area. So if you go out to your yard and you have just centipede grass or just St. Augustine grass, your grass is not very biodiverse. Your yard is not very biodiverse. If you were to walk into an area of land that a human hasn't walked on in 100 years, there's going to be a lot of variety of living things. Some that we might call weeds. So it's not just two or three types of plants or two or three types of animals. If you go to like the rainforest, I think most of us would assume that there's a bunch of different animals and plants all around. Some of them we've never seen or heard of before because of the rainforest is known for being very biodiverse. They have a lot of biodiversity. And when we start talking about biomes, we'll talk about how there's a lot of biodiversity in some areas and less in other areas. So walking through the woods and identifying several trees or shrubs or vines or herbs, large animals, insects, spiders, fungi, and evidence of microscopic life, which show that it is very biodiverse. That's a very biodiverse area. So again, interdependence is how living things depend on each other, and biodiversity shows that there's a lot of difference in life and difference in living things.